Zombies are extremely popular these days. We've seen hundreds of movies, video games, and short clips including these infamous creatures. They were shot at, stabbed, pierced, and fairly often enough, dealt with using martial arts. Yet if a zombie apocalypse would overtake our world, would martial arts really help us survive? And if so, which martial art would be best for it? Hi, my name is RokasLeo, and this time we're going to look at a brief history of martial arts and zombies. Although the origin of the zombie concept dates back all the way to 8th century Congo, in popular culture zombies came to major attention in the 1920s when a few different books about zombies were published, and in 1930s when the first full-feature film about zombies called White Zombie came to the screen. Yet the zombie's most massive success became obvious in 1968 with George R. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. While survivors would defend themselves against zombies in various ways, using martial arts as a means was still uncommon back in the day, at least in the Western culture. Some Eastern movies would be more keen on using martial arts to fight the reanimated dead, yet their fighting styles were mostly surreal, relying on superhuman skills and feats. Martial arts in the zombie world of the West became more common in 2002 with the release of the Resident Evil, a movie loosely based on the Japanese video game of the same name. The main character Alice, portrayed by Mila Jovovich, in the movie successfully uses her martial arts not only against zombie people, but also zombie dogs. Yet the whole film is still clearly not seeking to portray realism, and Mila's martial arts skills here can be really considered as a serious reference. Unfortunately, same applied even more in later Resident Evil movies and video games too, with the second movie turning Mila Jovovich's character into a superhuman. Eventually though, we end up at a TV series based on a graphic novel of the same name, which has achieved massive success and spent a great deal of time in the world of zombies while also trying its best to maintain a sense of realism, as much as one can do so in a world filled with reanimated flesh-eating people. The Walking Dead started airing in 2010, yet it hasn't shown signs of martial arts until the end of Season 2 and beginning of Season 3, with the appearance of the Japanese sword-wielding character Michonne. She successfully uses her sword skills, which, based on her movements, could be classified as a mix of traditional kenjutsu and some improvisational forms, to get out of many difficult situations. In Season 5, we also get reintroduced to the character Morgan Jones, who later reveals to have learned both Aikido skills and philosophy, although he mainly ends up using his staff movements, which actually do not come from traditional Aikido staff forms, but rather from movements of the staff used in karate. Although these are only two characters who display martial arts skills in the zombie world, which is more closely tied to realism, we can begin our analysis here of what could be useful to us in discovering if martial arts would help us in such a situation. As mentioned before, Morgan's character based on the show is officially using Aikido, yet 90% of the time he sticks to using his staff, which actually makes sense. In most zombie-related fiction, a zombie bite can lead to deadly results led by a strong infection. Also, biting is oftentimes the main way of attack of a zombie, which makes being in close distance with it most dangerous. This partially explains the success of both of our martial arts characters in using their longer distance weapons. Other characters in the show also use various bladed and blunt weapons, such as knives and sticks, yet having no martial arts experience, their more easily wieldable weapons do not give them as big of a distance and also oftentimes get stuck in the body of the zombie because of lack of proper technique. Considering these facts, using a martial arts based weapon actually makes sense, thus giving us a first plus in having martial arts skills in a zombie apocalypse world. One could quickly argue that using martial arts is by far inferior to using firearms, yet the TV show tackles this subject quite well too. Despite having access to firearms, first of all, the ammunition is not endless, while a staff or a sword can last much longer. Also, in various zombie material, including the show, zombies are attracted to loud noises, such as gunshots, thus giving yet another plus to using martial arts as a silent solution. Although up until now we spoke more about using martial arts weapons, we should obviously consider the vast majority of open-handed martial arts developed to fight in hand-to-hand combat. Even bladed and blunt weapons would eventually wear down, or even break, or could be lost in the midst of a fight. Same thing applies to firearms too, making hand-to-hand combat a preferable solution. We should again consider the danger of zombies in close distance, and that each strike could end up being a zombie snack, but if there are no weapons and nowhere to run, having to choose between having hand-to-hand combat experience and not, the first case is obviously strongly preferable. This point yet again gives another plus to knowing martial arts in a zombie apocalypse. Nevertheless, not all of the points are so right. No matter how polished one's technique is, using martial arts weapons or hand-to-hand combat still requires physical strength. Killing a few would not necessarily be a problem to skilled martial arts practitioners, but most likely the number of zombies would be almost endless, with so many people being infected. Thus, when we start fighting hundreds of zombies using physical skills, the human body would start to reach its physical limits and come closer to exhaustion with each kill, making firearms running away, or simply avoiding zombies entirely are much more preferable tactics than trying to beat them all with our skills. Speaking about the great number of zombies, there is one more thing we need to take a look at. As in many martial arts movies, zombie movies oftentimes also present the one attacker at a time while others bouncing around phenomena, which is not really realistic too. In movies and other popular culture, usually one or at most 3 zombies will walk towards a character at the same time, while others will be still keeping their distance to give enough space and time for their survivor to deal with them in a step-by-step manner. Yet considering that most likely there would be hundreds of zombies in most places, in reality they would not coordinate between themselves to attack in a comfortable way. There's a great chance that there would be a whole wave of them coming simultaneously, giving very little time and space for martial artists to deal with each one of them at a time using his skills. Although we should still consider the martial arts' ability to mind the surroundings,
always mind your surroundings,
and use it to their advantage, a skill practiced by some of the more traditional martial arts, as a great benefit, so that potentially compensates for the previous disadvantage. Last thing we will look at this time will be the difference between which martial art will be used. Although we will look more in depth at which martial art specifically would be best to know for a zombie apocalypse in the next part of the video, it already becomes quickly obvious that not all martial arts would fit the case. Martial arts which rely on very close distance should already be considered twice before applied, since a zombie can see that as an invitation to dinner rather than a clinch. Although a very skilled martial artist should be able to control an opponent in his guard or clinch effectively enough in order not to give space for a bite, yet while there are pluses and minuses here, there's undoubtedly another big related disadvantage. Zombie fighting is not a sport, and while one zombie is held in a guard or clinch, others won't wait for their turn and will begin the feast. That doesn't mean that some other skills of these martial arts could not be applied, but we should stay conscious that not all martial art techniques will prove to be useful. We could continue to look at advantages and disadvantages of martial arts in the zombie world for a whole nother video, yet it quickly becomes clear enough that having martial arts skills rather than not in a zombie-infested world would in the end be a great advantage. Nevertheless, we also have to admit that a zombie apocalypse is not the most likely event in our lives. Even having to use martial arts skills in the street without consciously getting into trouble is becoming less and less likely in modern world and countries. That is why it is important to remember that training martial arts is not meant only to use it in that one possible apocalypse or fight, but rather that it's a great tool for self-development and development of character, which we will be able to use and apply so often in any life decision or situation in our own real lives. What do you think about using martial arts in the zombie world apocalypse? Do you think they would be useful? Or would you simply prefer not having to fight zombies at all? Let me know in the comments, I always appreciate your thoughts. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to know in the next part, where we'll look at which martial art specifically would be best and most useful in this case, will come out. While you wait, check out our other brief martial arts history videos shown here. This was RokasLeo, and see you in the virtual mat again soon.